Hi, and welcome to part two. I have to tell you, the first thing we have to talk about right now is a question that I actually get all the time. And that question is, are angels real? The simple answer is absolutely yes. But we need to dive in a little bit. Chances are, if you're drawn to my work, then it's likely that you have some background in Christianity or church or something like that. I've gone to mostly Methodist churches, but I was actually baptized Southern Baptist at the time when we were living in the town that we were in. We happened to know some people that were going to the Southern Baptist church. And so at that time, when I chose to be baptized, we were actually going to the Southern Baptist. But that being said, I've also gone to many of non-denominational churches. So it doesn't really matter the background that you have, even if you were ever in church or not, but just generally the people that are drawn to my work usually have that in common. I will say I do have clients as well that are still unsure, which is totally fine, because here's the thing. Jesus doesn't, how can I say this nicely? He doesn't discriminate. If you are opening up to the spirit world, Jesus is here to help you no matter what. So the simple answer is yes, angels are real. So it's really interesting to me. Again, if we go a little bit back to what we talked about in the first video, is that sometimes we get trained out of or away from our own sovereignty. And what I want to touch on here is that the love of God is so real. And we have to understand that in the spirit realm, things are so different than what we do here on earth. When we're here in this human form, in this human experience, there are so many rules and so many laws that are not spiritual laws, but man-made laws. And a lot of what happens, you'll even notice this, even if you are not familiar with Christianity, you'll notice that there is a huge amount of different denominations and categories and all of these different things. And the only reason that they've split and they can't, they all have their own set of documents and rules and all of those kind of things, is because their doctrine, that was the word I was looking for. They've all got different rules and they couldn't agree. So they just kept splitting and splitting and splitting until the next thing we knew, we have all of these religions that are really the same. They all may even have the same thread of Christianity, but because they couldn't agree on the doctrine, they've split. So what's even more interesting about that is then you know that the men, women, whatever, at the time, mostly men in history, made the rules about this. And it was really interesting that if you think back even to when Jesus was around, you weren't allowed to go into pray unless you had the right quote unquote status and robe, right? And so it's really interesting to me that the idea of separating us from even being able to talk to God has happened for so long that that's definitely a programming issue that we have in our subconscious mind from generations and generations and generations. Now, of course, that really is just men making a mistake, because like I said in the first video, we all have a divine connection to spirit, but we've been trained away from it. So yes, angels are real. You can look in any kind of resource, and it doesn't even matter which religion you're looking at. Angels are talked about everywhere, but even in the Bible alone, the angels are mentioned over 270 times. The interesting thing also is that if you look up Colossians 1:16, there's a verse that says all things visible and invisible were created by God. Now, I don't think that's there on accident, right? So again, I'm not trying to convert anybody to Christianity. I'm just trying to give you the background from me, from where I understood, and these little hints that I found when I finally came into my own acceptance of the gifts that I have. Because for so long I was trying to stay away from them because I was afraid that it wasn't biblical. But I finally had a knockdown drag out with God a few years ago, and I just said, okay, you know what? You did this to me, either show me what to do or take this away. And that's when all of these little nuggets started showing up for me. All of these little verses, like Hebrews 12:22, which is interesting because another thing we talk about is angel numbers, but that's a whole different subject. But the 222 is definitely an angel number. And Hebrews 12:22 says there's a numeral, there's so many, you can't count them, company of angels. So that being said, if you look at TV or poetry or books or plays and movies, everything, there's always talk of angels. So I think just that in itself is proof that the angels are indeed real. But here's the important thing. What do you think? Right? It really always comes down to what you think and what you believe. So I want you to be brave enough to look at where some of the programming has come in and see where you're at with that. What do you really believe? The the one thing that I need to tell you is that whenever I work with any of my spirit guides or the angels, they all have a deep reverence for God, source energy, universal love, divine energy, whatever you want to call it, because God is that. Okay? So again, if you're working with me and God doesn't work for you, use whatever term you want to use for source, the creator of all that is, however you want to call that. My terminology for that is God, but you can use whatever you need to in that situation. But you have to know, regardless of what you name it, it's all real. Okay? Our best interest is also part of the angelic realm's purpose. They are here to help us. That's what they are meant for. So these angels and spirit guides that we have are really here for us. So just take a minute now and just journal out a little bit about what you think about angels. Do you think they're real? Is there any hesitation inside of you? Or do you know they're real, but now you don't know what to do to actually be able to communicate and talk to and use the gifts to be able to work with your angelic guides, your angels, your spirit guides, all of the guidance that we have available to us?